another place without me, or in ecstasy, and I'm left wondering. You push.
Welcome back, Psychic Unicorns, Dice Dragons, and Queer Witches, to another episode of ESP, the Eryn Spencer podcast. And thank you for joining us on short notice. We have as our guest today the wonderful Mr. Playwright, whom I recently met at AAC 2021, another anime con. Mr. Playwright, welcome. I'll give you the floor to do a little bit of a flavorful introduction of yourself and a little bit about what you're doing.
Yes. Hello there. My name is Michael, otherwise known as Mr. Playwright. I do have a Twitch channel, but it's nothing I do really is anything major. It's more laid back. I do also spend time writing and creating D&D style games. There's a couple I've either been working on or I want to run with people. I want to say at least 3 years I've been doing at least one or two of them just campaign-wise long. Other than that, I do a bit of writing. I'm really into the creation, I would say.
Same.
More than anything else.
World building is fun, and we have the world building woman from TikTok who's going to be joining us on a D&D Dungeon Master panel, because that seems to be all the rage lately. That's kind of the trend on the YouTube. This is to do a DM's panel, but we're doing a world building panel because world building it's a lot of fun. But we're not here necessarily today to talk about D&D, but I am really grateful to have met you because you are also a fellow D&D nerd, as am I. We're both tapped into that world, but a little bit of crossover. I mentioned to you at AAC my plans for AB and AAC next year. So we're going to talk about, that's a good segue to talk about AAC 2021, another anime con, because we met at your panel specifically. And yes. Again, segues. I think that's a great segue. You ran the D&D group therapy panel, which was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed myself there. I was perhaps a little bit too excited, but once we were all in the zone, it was great fun. And tell us a little bit about that panel at AAC 2021, your experience setting that up, your experience running the panel, and kind of your overall thoughts on, again, good place to start, kicking it off with D&D group therapy.
Funnily enough, didn't you, I think you showed up a bit early for that one, didn't you? I believe so.
I'm never early for anything, so that's a big deal.
It was at least 20 minutes, I want to say, because I was just sitting there waiting.
So I may have the schedule wrong. Yeah. That's a possibility too.
Let's see. I actually, this was my first year ever doing staff, but I was penned to join game show staff, I want to say about 3 years ago, before the Backstreet Boys reunion tour. Before that happened, and then the waiting. So I already had the idea for D&D group therapy. The original idea is actually very different from how it came out, I would say. My main thing is I love character work, and I actually absolutely love panels where literally everyone can participate, not just watch. It's never just like, oh, here's 3 people, everyone else, you're here too. I really enjoy getting everyone excited. So it's definitely been like a couple years in the making. So it's really different from how I originally planned it, honestly.
So what was your original concept then for the panel?
Okay. I want to say I may have to let me just think exactly. So it was always going to be a group of people going on a sort of quest. The original idea was that every single person was going to be playing a townsperson, like that's which ended up happening, sort of.
In a way.
and they would be instead of being the people on the quest, they would be the characters that would be developing the village, the town. It would be the enemies. It would be every single character you would come across. But to be fair, that is very complicated to do.
A bit.
Even if because I had only asked for about an hour, and I didn't realize I could ask for more than an hour. I thought an hour would be the max. No, I could have asked for 2, but I think 1 probably helped a lot with just solidifying.
Yeah, it definitely sped things up. One thing that I hear content creators, Sly Flourish and Satine Phoenix specifically talk about all the time is pacing, especially when you're hosting D&D events at conventions, is making sure that you get the right pacing down. And to do what you did in such a short amount of time takes a lot of talent. So hats off to you, friend.
Thank you. Funnily enough, I don't think I have actually DM'd a traditional 5e for I want to say actually a couple years, actually.
At a convention or in general?
In general.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So I have ran 5e. I've taken part of 5e, but my life has pretty much been encapsulated in what my friends really wanted to do for campaigns. So I kind of just went into like this whole side thing. So it is nice when I can try to get back to the roots. But when it came to D&D group therapy, I actually started to try to make a very simplified rule book specifically for the convention. I only got I want to say a couple pages in because I realized very quickly it was going to be extremely complicated. So I started to nail things down. So for those that do not know, D&D group therapy ended up being we had groups of people all taking control of one character as they were escaping from a prison.
Yes, and I really liked the characters that you had available, like the Kenku. The Kenku was the pirate, right? Because that was the one that we selected. Okay, I was writing things down as we were going, different phrases that they might have picked up along the way. The other characters, there was a baker. It was great fun, but that's just off the top of my head, right? As someone who was participating from the audience, so I'm sure you have them all in your head as what they were, because they were great.
I do have it written down because I did have some help with them, but it's a lot easier to make characters when you have someone to bounce ideas off of.
That is true. And at a convention, you have to keep things isolated. So I like that there were little individual character cards that had this is what you can do, this is your little box, because when you give people in a crowd too many options, it causes a little bit of confusion. There can be delays. People try to go outside the box. Kind of limiting crowd interaction or audience interaction at a panel like this is really, really key. And again, I think you did a wonderful job of pulling it off with those little index cards there.
Thank you. I figured it was going to be a lot easier to actually have it written down and given out to people.
Yes, it was.
Even up to the week before, I was fully planning on having everyone still being their own character. But then I had gotten to the week of, and I'm like, I have ideas, but I think all of these ideas are going to be overshadowed if there are way too many people doing way too many things.
Sounds like you almost flew too close to the sun, but backed away just in time.
Yes. I want to say, because obviously when you're in that, you're not getting all of the characters their full beauty. One of the favorites that I did work on someone with this, a satyr wizator. So a satyr who is a wizard. They were a satyr who worked part-time at the local tavern as a waiter to put themselves through wizard college. So a satyr wizator. The Dryad Park Ranger was very dark, and I don't think anyone really got to read the story I wrote out for them. I also really wanted to. There were a couple things I wanted to do that I had to sadly cut. There
Was
was
that because
something.
of the convention restrictions, or was that more of just because it wouldn't have worked logistically?
It was more of a time thing, and with how the game had changed, it was not going to be as common of an idea, especially with the time crunch. The original idea was with players also with the audience also playing the NPCs. I also thought I was going to have a slightly bigger room, not huge. By God, I did not want a huge room, but just big enough so like people can move a bit. One of the ideas I had was the mighty death cry. That every single time a character, like a minor villain or whatever, died, whoever was playing them had to do like a howl of death as they died.
Sounds like a theater exercise coming from my
Yes.
time in community theater.
Yes.
Avenge me. You can tell that we're community theater people. I've got battle axe.
Yes.
Wrong hand. There you go. Battle axe is in the back, and I've got my prop gun from Rocky Horror that we used still, which was just PVC piping that was covered in glitter. I still have that downstairs. But theater exercises are my favorite. I still sing Bumblebee Tuna before our D&D podcast with Fantastic Universes on Sundays.
I think I have exactly one thing from a show I've done that is out here. I can't find anything else other than like maybe Showbills. I don't even remember. I think that was from I have like a top hat I wore for the Crucible. I stopped. I had to stop doing theater when I started working full time. Like I want to say 5 years ago.
Yeah, it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem when you don't have a card in New York and you're not getting paid for it. Even local community theaters, that is for most people down on Cape Cod, kind of in our area, community theater is pretty big on the Cape from Wareham all the way to Provincetown, but still for everyone that does it, it is a second job. Having it as a primary career is extremely difficult and impossible for a lot of us, unfortunately.
Yes. Let's see. When it comes to D&D therapy, I am glad of how it ended up.
It was a lot of fun. Genuinely a lot of fun from someone that went into it with no expectations. I like that you had the giant stuffed dice that you could just throw around, having that little bit of interactive element. I'm sure for myself as ADHD neurodivergent individual, for a lot of other people, I know cons are therapeutic in general for anyone with any type of neurodivergence, which is great. It's a great outlet for everyone. But to have something big that you can be like, oh my God, I'm going to take this and throw it around and I can roll the dice and that sort of thing. I'm sure that was nice for a lot of people. Interactive. And then the cards too, you can look at and you can see the classes and the different characters.
Funnily enough, the die only came in the day before.
That's great. Perfect timing. That's all you needed.
Yeah. Because I thought of it too late. I'm like, it would be too late. And then I looked at it again later that week. I said, I might as well try. Worst case, I'll just use it for fun and my friends can throw it at each other. Whatever works.
That too.
Let's see. But honestly, I am just glad that people seem to enjoy it. I did have other ideas after, because definitely I feel like I'm going to try to bring this back next year.
I think that's a good idea.
I'm hoping, yeah.
For one thing, you inspired me for the one-shots that I want to do in both AAC and AB, because I really thought that what you did with the individual groups and having people divide up into groups and having those groups make decisions, the amount of retention that you had in that panel, and I think this is a good segue to talk about other things at AAC, the way that you had structured that with getting literally every single person in that room involved kept your attention, kept people engaged, kept people in the room, kept the energy and the excitement at an all-time high. And that inspired me when I do my Attack on Titan one-shot to kind of use that same system and have the characters divided up into large groups so you can have like a group consensus. And with the Apocalypse World system, having a limited tool set is nice. I might have to trim it down a little bit, depending on how much faith I have in the audience as we approach as we approach the next convention years. But what you did, that sort of segmentation, was perfect, and that's something that is lost on a lot of panelists. That between Kineticon, AAC, and other smaller cons that Comic Cons that we've been to, you have that retention problem, right? Where you come in and then people just filter out. But the way that you engaged everyone was pretty close to, I think, the ideal. The other thing that you can do is you can just throw candy at people, but I think that is a better strategy of actually having these groups.
You can do both.
Yeah, you can do both.
The chocolate is needed to keep their energy up, because if they're going to be so excited, they're going to be like, I need something to keep this energy going.
Yes, exactly.
I need to reach into the dark excess of my mind.
Chocolate is the water of life.
Cocoa.
Yeah, cocoa is the bean of life. And yes, I know that sentence didn't make sense. It wasn't supposed to. To everyone listening.
So one idea I also had, I doubt I'm actually going to be able to do this in particular next year. I also thought it would be kind of a nice idea, because originally it was D&D Group Therapy Anime Edition. It wasn't as anime-ified as if I'd have liked. So I did have some isekai themes. Also, after the fact, I thought, what's very anime? Pokemon.
Yeah.
Having the entire audience be quite literally any Pokemon they wanted, but because there are Pokemon D&D games out there.
Are there really?
Oh, there is plenty. Pokemon Tabletop United is about, I want to say, several. That's about almost 2 gigabytes worth of things.
So one thing that I have noticed lately is, and you may have seen this in the news and the headlines, is that TikTok content creators opening Pokemon packs online has caused a national shortage, and we have people in Targets and Walmarts literally shooting each other over shortages of Pokemon cards, which is the Pokemon craze now in the mainstream is bigger than it's ever been, and it's wild. And the fact that it's making national headlines and forced these giant retailers to change their policies and limit, even in some cases, not understanding anything about TCGs, even extending that to Magic, which is not supposed to be the case. I think Wizards had come to an agreement with the retailers that it doesn't have anything to do with Magic. There's not a Magic shortage. But Pokemon specifically, to have these retailers have these signs that says limit 2 per customer strictly enforced, it's wild.
Yeah. I used to be in the TCG craze years ago. I want to say like in high school. It's more difficult to, I don't know, I've tried getting into Magic. It worked a couple times. I played it a couple times. Pokemon a bit, like I was more into collecting when I was young, so I have like the old cards, and then I got really into Yu-Gi-Oh, which is like the geeks like rite of passage when you're in high school.
I never really got into Yu-Gi-Oh, but I know it was very popular, especially with the anime convention crowd.
When it comes to, I want to say that I think it started getting a bit wild when it was the McDonald's variety packs, whatever they were doing with. I think it was the Happy Meals. I remember
that, yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, that's when everyone started buying. A lot of YouTubers, TikTokers, Twitch streamers. Twitchers, it sounds wrong, but it also kind of right, but it doesn't sound right. There were a lot of videos of them opening up packs from McDonald's and such, to the point where McDonald's, who has so many locations and so much extra stock all the time, were running out because they had people just buying all these things, and they're like, we're selling, that's really all that matters. And so that craze started.
Sells.
Because people were making money on it, or they were at least pretending like they were making money on it. So that made more people want to go. I can guarantee a lot of people did not even... a lot of people that were doing the opening packs probably never played and they either try to immediately sell the cards, or they just left them, or they gave them away. And I feel like immediately that issue is it's okay if something is popular, but when something becomes oversaturated, their value starts to go down a bit. Like,
well, that's a good segue for the yard sale, because there was a ton of Pokemon stuff. I think I saw a couple of card packs, but we had a yard sale this year at AAC, and everybody wants to talk about that because that was a big deal. I liked it. I thought it was neat, but apparently it was a pretty big deal. I don't know if you can speak to that, being someone from a staff perspective, but I was told that it was a big deal to have that yard sale this year.
I can honestly say I was in there for 5 minutes, and then I had to go help someone else.
Well, I thought it was great. All of the dealers that were part of the yard sale, or the vendors, were really friendly. It was kind of like a casual atmosphere. I liked that there was some place where we could go to just buy a whole bunch of extra stuff for cheap. That was kind of very casual, like a flea market.
Yes. And that was the day I realized I should have gotten cash the day before.
Yeah.
Because all I had the entire weekend was, I want to say a couple crumpled ones, and then my debit card. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
And
well,
not a lot of people are ready to be like, I just came here for fun. I don't really have a way to take your credit card or debit card.
Right. Which is true of the yard sale. But again, interestingly, I was told, again, through the grapevine, that it was a very big deal to have that. And I think from just my independent perspective, I thought it was great. I thought it was a great atmosphere. There was a lot of good stuff, a lot of great people. I think it went really well. And I don't know if this is the first time they did this, which might have been why it was a quote unquote big deal, but I would love to see it again. I think it was great. And I know that the AAC staff watches our videos and our podcast. So this is the time to lobby for stuff. Do you have any other takes on that? I thought it was great.
I mean, I want to say more, but I wasn't really involved in that in particular. So I can't say that much, but it's definitely good to have yard sales, especially after a convention, because you want to buy or sell things you have. Yeah. My God, I have so many things in this corner over here that I probably do not need.
So what did you think of the dealer's room this year? I thought that the dealer's room was quaint, it was nice, it was in a good location, kind of separated and distanced enough from the rest of the con. You had the staff member selling miniatures right at the base of the stairs, which was great. Love seeing the D&D minis there. Shout out to that panel. I got about 20 or 30 different business cards, the usual networking, but I thought the artist alley and the dealer's room were both great. I like that the artist alley was kind of off to the side as well. The signage was clear. It was kind of weird having the floors, the way that the floors were separated at this venue were a little strange. It was like walking through a wizard's maze, a wizard's maze, where you would go up half a flight of stairs and be in between the floors, but somehow end up on the second or the third if you took the wrong turn around a corner. But that's, the old hotel, which I think is something a lot of people want to talk about. But what was your general experience with the hotel, the layout, the venue, the dealer's room, and the artist alley that were on like 3 different levels?
So first of all, when it comes to the hotel, if you didn't go, they have these giant keys for your room. And you're like, there's no way I'm going to lose this. And then people did.
Yeah, you put it in your pocket or in your purse or your wallet.
Yeah, I quite literally just put mine on my key ring, and I'm like, I think I'm fine, but it feels like my entire key ring just doubled in weight. I'm going to be over encumbered. I am going to be unable to do any actions. I have to halve my movement speed.
Yeah, the giant keys. So there were a lot of memes and a lot of jokes that came out of the hotel. One was that did we just walk onto the set of Loki in the TVA, or at the other side of that was, did we just walk into the TVA? The second was, is this a TARDIS? And there were a couple of other ones about I think one was about the interior set of the Titanic and some time machine jokes. But it was a unique experience. But the good news is, from what I'm told, they want us back at the hotel, which is great, because this is the first time I think in a while, as someone that's been going to AAC for a while, when someone has said, please come back.
Yes. I also heard that. I don't know too much information about it, but I've heard that people were happy from all sorts. I don't think there was anything. I think everyone was happy that I heard about from everyone.
Yeah, I had no complaints. My rooms were nice. I heard that some of the rooms were in dire need of an update, but nothing that nobody really had any. I think there were a couple of complaints about the hotel rooms that were older. I think a couple of things with the facilities, but there were only a couple, and I believe they were remedied. The Wi-Fi went out at one time, but it wasn't a problem to the point where it was a major issue. It was more of kind of like it added to the nuance and to the meme a little bit. It added to the running joke about the hotel being, the TVA, or being, walking through a time machine into the 1950s on the set of Mad Men. It added to that joke because nobody really had a bad experience. I love that they want us back. I love that they were so nice to all of the con goers where other facilities have not been in the past, and they want us to come back. And the staff was pretty cool, pretty chill, and for a hotel that's in need of some updates, the staff was pretty friendly and just very nice, which is nice is nice.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, for me, all that mattered was, oh, hey, we have rooms and they have beds and I can sleep in one.
Yes.
And the shower works. I am happy. I am honestly quite. I mean, the air conditioner was very cold.
Yeah, I had no
And I was
problems with the AC
shivering. We had it. Apparently, we had it full blast. I don't know why. I remember waking up shivering. It got cold really fast. Which, granted, that is a very good air conditioner to do that.
These huge boxes.
Yes. Let's see. And then when it comes to
what about the artist alley or the dealer's room? What were your thoughts on that with the hotel, or
Well,
with the extended convention center hotel?
My immediate thought was there was a vendor that sells themed cupcakes.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And they were delicious.
I loved all of the vendors, but I think the cupcake vendor wins. Sorry, everybody. Yeah. But themed cupcakes with anime nerds like us. Come on. Yeah. That's going to be number one all the time.
Let's see. And there was also a good mixture of everything you could possibly want. There was an entire corner. There was an entire corner that was just like, oh, I desperately just want something cute to put it next to my bed at night so I can just, leave it there or something. And then there was corners doing sweets and drinks like Ramoon, Pocky. There was really good pins. There were definitely bows. Actual art everywhere. There was a good mix. And the good thing is we had staff pretty much making sure none of the rooms were exceeding the amount of people that were supposed to be in there, because they always had security watching out just to make sure, because obviously we are still at the helm of the Backstreet Boys reunion tour, and we have I know a lot of things don't like a lot of YouTube, Twitch things tend to hate when you say a certain different word. So I try not to say that word.
So what do you mean by the Backstreet Boys reunion tour? Because I've heard that a few times.
The thing that we've all been going through for the past 2 years.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Gotcha. And by that, you mean the changing of venues from the uncertainty? Is that what that means?
The thing that I need this vaccination card for.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right.
Yes, because obviously, when it comes to life after that, it's just a reference to some other group that says instead of that. Obviously, rooms cannot be filled past their numbers. We've seen in the past, in the bygone eras, we've seen rooms that were like filled to the brim, like 50 to 100 people. We obviously cannot have that for well, for the larger rooms, yes, but for the smaller rooms, no. Even if everyone's vaccinated, it's definitely it's nice that it's a very safe. It was a very safe convention. I was never really worried. And honestly, people felt safe. And I honestly think this was one of my favorite conventions I've ever done. Granted, it's my first staff convention, so I don't know.
Oh, this was your first time being staff?
Yes.
Well, we were happy to have you as staff. And I think the overall consensus from what we're saying is that the hotel, dealer's room, the artist alley, the layout, even with we can call it the Caravana, even with the dreaded Caravana still in our midst, we were able to generally have a good time. But I wanted to talk about the specific panel at the end where there was a panel that turned into a feedback panel. And I had specifically approached everyone after and said, well, we're going to do a podcast on this. And we do this every year. And we know that the convention staff and organizers, both for us and for Anime Boston, because we got credentials for them as well, listen to our podcast for just kind of general feedback and, just for some input from the media in this situation. So I want to just go over that. You were at that panel, I believe, right? Which was the Try Not to Ooh that turned into a feedback panel.
Yes. I remember still finding a way to make everyone break down as I was pretending to play darts with like the foam bullets from like a Nerf gun. It was like several weekends ago.
It was. It feels like it feels like forever ago, but it also feels like it was just last weekend. But I know that the staff there, which I know. Matt McKenna, who has been doing this for a long time and is sort of like
a fabulous man. Yes. Matt McKenna.
Almost like sort of the go-to authority for the other staff as far as game shows and panels and that community of staff. He's one of the beacons. But the individual that ran that panel, the Try Not to Ooh, their name was Conway, right? Or was that someone different?
I'll have to double check. Hold on. I am sorry.
That's okay. I know we only spoke. I only spoke with them briefly, but there was a panel that turned into a general feedback panel, and I know some people had some issues with the technology from a staff perspective, with the some of the panels being packed in too tightly, some technical difficulties that arose, some supply drop issues with getting certain technology and or certain supplies to certain panels. What was your experience with that as a staffer? And did you have any of those experiences? Because I know we were both at that particular panel, and certain panelists, part of that extended community, seemed to have some issues with the allocation of panels at certain times not making sense for getting people back. There wasn't really anything anyone could do about being packed in too tightly. That was just unavoidable. So I'm going to table that for now, put it in the ether. So going back to panels being placed at awkward times, perhaps, technology and supplies that were needed for panels not getting there, and then if it was there, it would have a bit of a malfunction or an issue or delay. Those were some of the complaints that I wrote down from some of the panelists that they wanted us to talk about here. And staying true to my word, I wanted to at least bring that up and see what your take on that was as a staff member, or if you even experienced that at all, or if you had any general commentary on that feedback panel.
Yes. Well, I can start with the room being a bit packed tight, because I did feel like my panel did have... I felt like one thing I definitely could have done was try to make a bit more room, but I try to make as much room as possible, especially since I didn't really think I can move the projectors as much, because I didn't want to mess around with other people's setup. So there were a few things that were a bit tightly packed, but they are small rooms. There are other panels, especially not game show panels going on. So Um, especially when it comes to the timing, there are going to be awkward timings because you may want to see two things happen at the same time. But the issue is, obviously, it's kind of impossible to literally have an entire convention planned around one full schedule going down, because then at some point you're just running out of time.
Exactly.
If it was as simple as, oh hey, these panels are just like too close together to jump straight from one panel to another to another to another. That's one thing, but there's really nothing else I believe we can do when there's so many panels. Because there were a lot of panels going on in the other rooms that I had no idea of, because I really only had the list of the game show. And I looked afterward, and I'm like, oh, yes, we have idol showcases. I forgot we had that. Because I walked in, people were dancing. I'm like, what is this? I am confused.
Well, I think, and again, credit to all of the positive things that the staff was able to put together, and a credit to Lisa for really getting the most in generally speaking, out of this space, because at the end of the day, right, objectively speaking, there's only so much that the staff can do, that the organizational staff can do about room sizes. There's only so much they can do about the amount of rooms that are available within the space. And there's only so much they can do about the restrictions, the Carvana restrictions, as we're going to call it.
Yeah.
But I think given all those circumstances, I feel like they did the best that they could. And I didn't have any complaints myself as media. And it seemed like your panel went very well, even for a small space. And it seemed like for the therapy, the D&D group therapy, everything sort of went according to plan. From what I'm hearing, I think, generally speaking, would you agree with that?
It was a lot of improv and more people than I was expecting, I'll be honest. I was expecting 5 people, and I was expecting to know 4 of them. That was my original thought process. And then when people started showing up early, I thought they walked into the wrong room, or that I was in the wrong room. And then everyone seemed excited. And then more people came in. And then more. And then people had to start filing in at the door. And I'm like, I wish. Because granted, for my panel, no one could tell immediately how good it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Or how many people were going. Because it's the first time we've done this.
Right.
Especially the first time we've had conventions for AAC especially in like 2 years.
Yes. Ghost Carvana.
So, yeah. So when it comes to that, it's kind of hard to get back into the swing of things, hard to know exactly how many people are showing up.
Growing pains.
Yeah. It's there. The people going to the convention are also in the right. They need to have more room, but that is no one's fault, not the hotels.
Yes, difficult situation.
Yeah, not AAC at all. It is more of, oh, hey, we gave you these options. We didn't realize how popular what these options would be.
Like,
I feel like if for example, D&D group therapy was popular for the room it had. If I had a larger room, it would not have been worth it. But because I know there are bigger rooms, but also there are some things that need those bigger rooms as well.
Yes. The hypnotism was one, which is very popular, and apparently it went well this year. I popped in for a couple of minutes just to check it out, and everyone seemed to be very much involved and enjoying it. And I know it's something people look forward to every year. So I did show up to that and take a couple of notes, and it went great. But I think I had like 3 things happening at the same time during that time block. So did my diligence, went in, took a peek. It was a great room for that. It was the tiered room with the conference tables with the comfortable chairs, which was an awkward setup, but it seemed to work for that panel, and everyone seemed to be comfortable, having a good time and enjoying it. And it lived up to its hype, of course, but I wasn't in there for the whole thing. And then I had a couple of other panels that I went to. But you're right, for having bigger rooms, that went very well. And I do have to say that shout out to Matt McKenna, the beacon of this community of staff members. The one panel I go to every year, and I've gone to every year as a fun panel for myself, my friends, and my guests, and whoever I end up meeting at AAC. We always go to the It's Always Sunny panel, the 18+1 specifically, and the initial one that they have, I believe, on the first or second day. But that's always a good time, and Matt McKenna crushed it again as usual, and I thought that was a great panel.
I was also staff for the 18+1.
That was a good time.
I was mostly there just to make sure, because I was there for the original one. I want to say I wasn't staff. I just like making sure people are okay, because I know that one does get a bit more loud and rowdy than the other ones. So it definitely needs help to be contained. That one definitely needed to be put in a bigger room, but there was only so much obviously that could be done at that point.
Mm-hmm. So that's actually a good bullet point. We can say recommending that the 18+, at the very least, the 18+, It's Always Sunny be placed in a larger room for next year.
I mean, I'm sure. Obviously, I've only been staff for 1 year. I had fun. Everyone was very professional. I have no complaints whatsoever in any regard.
Yeah, honestly, for myself as media and as somebody that was there in that capacity, I personally did not have a single complaint myself either. So I think, at least for those of us here on this podcast, thumbs up. And also shout out to Tim, Drake Hard again. The panels went swimmingly, so to speak. The Anime Debate Club was a lot of fun. I took some photos there. That was a 16+ panel, which was interesting, kind of like a high school age debate panel. There were a lot of good things brought up there. Like, for example, subs and dubs, and bringing up in 2021, it was nice to hear someone actually say, well, subtitles may present an issue for individuals with disabilities. So I thought that was nice that someone brought that up. And also, all I will say, because we're not supposed to talk about it, but the Unmentionables panel, thumbs up. Everything went very well. So what I was told was that so long as there are no issues, knock on wood, that it will continue to go off without a hitch. It is one of my personal favorite panels. I participate in how should I say this? I participate thoroughly and completely every year. And this year was excellent, amazing panel, very well run, went off without a hitch. So thumbs up. Everything's good there. What was your personal favorite panel out of all the ones either that we've talked about or that you have been a part of?
Well, let's see. I want to say most of the panels that I was actually able to go to were ones that I were part of staff. So most of the weekend was either work or saying hello to people I haven't seen in forever, I want to say. Personally, for me, it was 100% group therapy, just because
it's kind of like your baby in a way.
I've been working on that for 2 years.
Yes, your baby is your panel baby.
Yes, and I definitely feel it's nice to have a lot of panels for all sorts of people, all sorts of interests. This is an anime con, but that doesn't mean it should just be limited to just anime. Or at the very least, if it is centered more on it, open up the interest a bit more, so it's not just, oh, hey, I've watched that show. It was not great. Why is that show on air?
Preaching to the choir, my friend. Absolutely.
They should fire that director.
I would love to see more. One thing that I have had interest in for a while, and that's something that we might be able to collaborate on as well, is a D&D themed anime. For example, Record of Lotus War, which was famously based on D&D, and because it says ESP D&D right above us, I think it's important to talk about. Record of Lotus War, Bahamut, Rage of Bahamut. I think, in a way, Escaflowne feels very the isekai fantasy of Escaflowne between both the movie and the show does feel very D&D in its own way. Granted, it has that sort of giant mecha element, but it was sort of done in a science fantasy way, which I really appreciate. There are a few others, and D&D themed anime. Those are the three big ones. Berserk, obviously, if you want to add a fourth, actually that might be number one for a lot of people as far as D&D or fantasy themed anime, but there's a lot to talk about there. Any that come to mind for you?
I would definitely say 95% of isekai anime, right off the bat, are literal D&D campaigns when you throw in the homebrews. Every single time. Slime! Would you like to play as a slime character? I've made 5 pages here, and it is overpowered as hell. Oh, hey, I want to make this character very broken. He's mentally and emotionally broken. Rising the Shield Hero. But I need that, like, special, that weapon. So everyone in the party gets a weapon, but they can never. It's the D&D campaign where no one can ever agree on what time they want to play. So we have one person doing their own very morbid campaign, and then we have the other 3 being like, "Oh, hey, we're great," and then secretly, "Oh, we're the villains." What?
That, and on that same vein, you have maybe a group of friends that break off and do 3 different campaign styles, or you have one campaign where nobody can agree as to what type of character they want to do. So you have steampunk characters, you have cowboy characters, you have samurai. There was just a meme about this, about how in I think 1837 that was a convergence of timelines in actual history, where or the early. I'm not sure the exact.
There was a definite time where like cowboys, samurai,
yeah.
Could
Exist at the same time.
Been, yeah.
And that is, and a lot of, with the isekai element, you could say, and we're adding the homebrew. So there's a lot of wild stuff you can throw into there. But we are running tight on time. So there were a couple things I just wanted to mention briefly. We had the pleasure of being able to meet the amazing guests, the special guests that we had this year at AAC. And I think the staff did an amazing job of getting excellent community-centered celebrities to come and hang out with us at AAC, which is nice because it's very casual and you can actually get a chance to talk to the voice actors, content creators that are brought on as guests. So Kyle McCarley, Kiba Walker, Caitlin Galt, and Cole. I don't want to say the last name right. I've been saying Fuchter, or I hope that is correct, but at Lord Azria. You can check them out. But yeah, Caitlin Galt, famously Fenico from Agretsuko or Gretsuko, depending on your vernacular.
Gretsuko.
Yes. And Kyle McCarley, 9S from Nier Automata, who my good friend and my usual co-host for this podcast, who you may have seen on the past 2 episodes, Jordy, who was unfortunately not able to join us at AAC this year. But I am very happy to have made new friends. The Irregular Retro Gaming Gauntlet was when I spent the entire panel there from start to finish. That was a lot of fun. There was an AMA with Caitlin Galt, which turned into an AMA with both Caitlin Galt and Kyle McCarley, which I did my best to guide the conversation to a more casual format, being in the front, asking about restaurants and pets and who's more competitive. It was a great panel. I think having the media that we had there this year was excellent. Individuals representing the different media outlets that were there were great. I got a chance to talk to all of them. Everyone of my colleagues was very professional, and we were all treated very, very well. So thank you very much, AAC, for being so nice to all the media staff that was there. But segueing back to the celebrity guests, the voice actors, content creators, and guests that we had, did you get a chance to meet any of them? They're all amazing people. I got a couple of selfies. I had a good time.
No. I believe the only one I actually got to see in any capacity was Kiba Walker. Mm-hmm. However, I was never actually able to go to any of their panels. I did have... and then once again, I didn't have any cash, so I couldn't be like, oh, hey, that autograph, I want it. But honestly, when it comes to conventions, there's always so much to do that anything you really want to do, you have to make sure you get it. You kind of have to have a calendar or timer set, just so you know. I have to do this, this, this. I want to meet this person, and I have exactly 15 minutes between bathroom breaks to do so. But
yeah, I was more curious as to. I think I ran into some staff and before some of the panels and just asked, kind of generally speaking, about some interviews, and they said there was just kind of like, hey, are there any open slots I can slide into? But there weren't any, but it was worth a shot. But we did get to go to the AMA. And which was great. It was not as packed as I thought it would be, and I think that was very clever with putting it all the way in the back corner of the hotel. But some interesting things we learned in the AMA, which I did my best to guide that into a more casual format, because I think one thing that you get when you have an AMA with voice actors is that a lot of the questions from the audience will be, can you help me get into voice acting? How do I get into voice acting? Tell me about voice acting. Where do I start? So I feel like in that moment, I did my best to sort of segue and sort of try to work with the audience there and with the crowd to have some more lighthearted conversation and lighthearted questions about what's your favorite restaurant? Can you recommend a sushi place for us in LA? Again, who's the more competitive gamer? It was Caitlin. She admitted that. What are some of your hobbies? Do you have any other businesses? And Caitlin also makes refrigerators that are trunks. They look like refrigerators, but they look like trunks, but they're refrigerators. So they're covered in leather and straps and buckles, and it looks like something you might have found from the wreckage of the Titanic. But when you open it up from the side, it's an actual refrigerator or cooler, things like that, which is really nice. But in doing that, I was able to, I think the atmosphere kind of changed, and a lot of the other audience members were able to additionally ask more questions that kind of made the atmosphere, again, a bit more casual. And they asked fun questions, burning questions about different anime or different voices that they may have had. So overall, I think the panel went very well. It's just an interesting observation as both someone who has been to cons as a con goer and who has been as media. In those situations, a lot of people do tend to ask specific questions about voice acting and how do I break into this. But that is just sort of comes with the territory, I think. But it was a great conversation otherwise, and they were both amazing people to meet and be able to have a casual conversation with. So that was just my experience. Shout out to Caitlin and Kyle for doing the AMA, and thank you for your time and for answering my silly questions about sushi restaurants and cafes. And also thank you for answering everyone else's questions about voice acting.
I feel like a lot of times whenever there's a panel with voice actors, a good portion of it is going to be how can I break out into the voice acting world? Because I feel like a good majority of people, more than most other conventions, I want to say, when it comes to specifically anime themed, there's going to be a lot of questions about breaking up, because for a lot of people, these are their childhoods. This is They're like, oh, I could be this character. I've read about for years that they're finally putting into anime 20 years later. And a lot of people obviously want to know that, but it's not an easy world to break into.
Yes.
You either have to kind of know someone or you have to work your way up. So I understand people wanting to ask, just how did you break out? Or how did you get to this point? That is probably the only way to really go about it the right way.
No, that's a really good take, and it's actually now that I think of it that way, that's definitely a valid question. And again, I think in my experience, most individuals handle that question very well. It's a common question. It's asked, I think, at every time I've been to an AMA. Someone asks that question, and I think in my experience, between at least the Northeast cons in the Northeast, again, so far, all of the guests at various conventions have handled that question very well. And again, I think you have a really great take on that, where, yeah, it makes sense as to how can I, as someone who is very passionate, break into this sort of business and sort of tools and tips of the trade and for the
Yeah,
audience.
I haven't really been doing a lot of actual projects lately, I want to say. Most of the projects I've worked on either got released and then removed like a year or two later,
It's a hard business to
or
break into.
actually, I feel like that's a majority of, or they never got off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Or literally, my first big project was like I got cast for someone's small Death Note abridged,
Yes.
and
Which sounds like fun, by the way.
yeah, and he was like, it was like a minute long. Problem is, I had to write the entire script and voice L and like several other characters. And then they were like, you know what, let's do an actual show. And then we got like a YouTuber and like a Facebook cosplay model to actually be like in the thing.
Okay.
But only the first episode got finished, and the issue was my original script was not good. The original person that put everything together left quarter of the way and threw everything at me. I'm like, I'm not a director. You are also the video editor. I cannot do this. And it fell apart. So whenever someone's trying to do voice acting stuff, you kind of have to keep working hard. You have to look and see who's looking for help, and like behind the voice actors or something.
Yes. But generally speaking, I want to thank Caitlin and Kyle, and then also Kiba Walker and Cole for just being incredibly accessible to both media and to the audience, and great choices for guests. They were very easy to talk to, I think, again, for both myself and from the con goers, the audience. They were very friendly, and I think a lot of the con goers got the chance to get autographs signed without an issue. The lines weren't too bad, and everyone seemed to be generally happy. So excellent choice in guests, and of course extending a thank you to our four wonderful guests at AAC for taking the time to be there and for talking to all of us. Now, the one thing I want to just segue back into, getting back into more con-specific things before we wrap up, is the one thing I forgot to say earlier from that feedback panel that we did at the end of the con, was the one thing that I promised to relay was on behalf of some of the staff that were doing the game shows, their request was to have the Jeopardy Round 3 finals in the mid-afternoon on Sunday rather than first thing in the morning, and having, or just general game shows, any of the game show panels. The big critique on that from some of the panelists was, could they please have the finals for any game show not first thing in the morning? And I think you were there for that conversation as well.
Yes, I was there for the conversation. I definitely didn't speak at all about. I actually didn't get to see the Jeopardy games. I believe I may have seen one.
First two parts of it.
I forget, because I know there were two different Jeopardy games, I think.
Which is always a big hit. Everybody loves that. As far as
I did test out one of the games with Sweeney. I would have definitely lost. There was a couple questions. There was one question he was excited that I got right, and then he looked over, and I was looking on my phone for the answer.
As one may or may not do.
Yes.
So
it's legal as long as you do not get caught looking at the answers.
True. It's legal until you get caught.
Oh, Trickback.
Yes. So while we're running out of time here, I just want to circle back and say, do you have any? I think we've covered everything that I wanted to talk about. My notes have been thoroughly checked. twice. We've said our thank yous to the guests and extended our appreciations. And I wanted to just circle back with you and see if you had, or see what your final thoughts were on AAC 2021. Put it all in a nice little package for us.
Another AnimeCon 2021 was a great comeback to the years that we have missed. And we do hope next year that you do want to come back. Because another AnimeCon is a home away from home.
That's a soundbite. That's a good soundbite. I mean, I can't follow that. All I'll say is, personally, I had a wonderful, wonderful experience. I went with my girlfriend, who also had a wonderful experience. I met new friends, both friends and professional colleagues in the future, and also just casual friends that are just you go and get a pizza with. So it's a great time. It's family. You meet new friends, new colleagues in some cases, new peers, and I strongly recommend it. I had an absolutely wonderful time with no complaints. Excellent job from the staff and from the artists, the vendors, the individuals who helped put the yard sale together, the panelists, the guests. Everyone was just fantastic. Definitely recommend AAC as a convention, and I'm looking forward to AAC 2022. And I think that everything with the Caravana went very, very well, given the restraints that the staff was given to work with. So last but certainly not least, again, quoting Hot Ones here, rolling out the red carpet for you, Mr. Playwright. Tell the lovely people of the internet where they can find you and what you're currently working on.
Oh, where can they find me? Mr. Playwright on Twitch. I do not stream too often. I am trying to get my own place so I can actually, stream more. I'm trying to actually get to one stream a week right now. I want to say, how many? I have at least 70 followers, I want to say. So I'm doing okay. I play, let's see, I feel like mostly it's Dead by Daylight. I absolutely love murder mystery games. I have a soft spot for Yakuza and Danganronpa, but I've played those all already, and Life is Strange. Other than that, there is a board game I'm currently working on where, it is a good idea. It's about adventurers going to a place that has they have 30 days, and they will completely clear out the new monster's hideaway. Problem is, the players are merchants, and they have to sell to the adventurers and make their fortunes before it's too late. Other than that, I've just been working on, and I'm hoping to eventually start streaming Rings and Ropes, which is a D&D game, D&D style game that I've made several rulebooks of from the ground up. It is a professional wrestling based
right, you tell me about
tabletop game, yeah. And I'm hoping to actually try. I'm still working on I'm trying to perfect it, and my friends are not happy because they're like, you keep changing the rules, and I do
part
apologize.
of the process. That's part of the process.
But I do actually hope that I'm actually able to try it out, especially with more people.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's one thing I do always appreciate having the group that I always do, but it is nice to have other people's thoughts so I can fully improve what I'm doing.
Well, if you need more playtesters, certainly reach out.
I mean, if you really want to do a one-off professional wrestling game,
I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
But if you need some feedback from entry-level content creators, I am your woman.
I mean, I can definitely drop the rulebook I currently have.
Yeah, great. And we can talk about that more sort of indefinitely, ongoing. And I'll reach out to you as well about the Attack on Titan one shot that we have going on. But any other social medias you want to drop?
Nope.
Okay, all right,
That's
great. So you can find us twitch.tv/ESPDND with an N as in Nitro. And that's every other Saturday. You can find us doing our Tomb of Annihilation actual play live stream campaign starting at 9:15 p.m. EST. The stream actually goes live around 9 p.m. EST on alternating Saturdays. And our Twitter is right there on the background where you can follow both my personal Twitter and the ESP Twitter as well. And also, we are on TikTok at Eryn Spencer and also at Roy Brown Designs, who is one of our staff members, our incredible non-binary lead artist, and also Twitch content moderator. So you can check us out on Twitch, on Twitter, and those are really the big ones, and some fun little doobly-doos on TikTok. So without further ado, we will go ahead and call it there for the evening. Thank you all. I love it. Thank you all for joining us.
It is very dirty.
Yeah, due for a wash.
Yes.
Due for a wash in the ocean or other, as in the anime, as in the film. But until next time, until the next podcast, stay tuned for the next episode of ESP D&D. And until then, peace out, witches. Bye, everybody.